Welcome back to a family business podcast. I love it that we don't know each other's topics ahead of time. It's so fun. Except for I predicted you guys' topic
would be the same.
Yeah. Well, I didn't predict it would be the same, but I knew you were both gonna. One of them you were gonna go. Okay. So today's topic. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Wait. Let's do Q&A. What do you think my topic is? PT?
Tariffs.
We have to cut this entire episode now because we just used that bad word again in 2 pods.
We're gonna sneak it in every episode.
It's outrageous. I hate that word. I'm gonna get t-shirts made for both of you. Okay. Our topic today, boys, is the number one mistake that new agents make. Ooh. Are you guys excited?
Yeah, and we'll go through them all, and we'll we'll miss some. And no, yeah, it's quite interesting. I mean, we've in the past talked a little bit about what recommendations, how to kind of get started, what to look for. But I guess we can also just cut straight to the chase and what not to do.
Yeah. So what's the number one mistake you see new agents, and what's so great, PT, is that you've been around enough years now that you've seen new agents.
That's right. Yeah. Now we're starting to get to the point where now I'm like,
one of the veterans.
We're training, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is fun.
So what's the number one mistake you see new agents make right out of the gate?
I'm going to say thinking that they have to have all the answers.
Yeah, I think that definitely, because you want to put a face on and you want to know everything, and that definitely you can fall into a trap pretty easily. And to build off that too, I remember, and this was pretty recent, and it was a learning moment for me as well. But I used the word assumed, and the client did not like that, right? So, assuming or not having the answer and making up something, it's never a great idea.
It's funny you just said that because I would agree. Like, I think mindset, and that's one of the things that's on here is mindset. And I just had that conversation with our brand new agent yesterday in the car. And it's funny because she said, so again, you must have had a similar conversation, PT. She said, yeah, PT talked a little bit to me about that because he said it's better you just, say I'm not sure on that. And I'm going to get back to you. I said, yes, because especially people that are interviewing you for the job of being their agent or whatever, they can smell baloney.
Oh yeah.
And it's a confidence thing, but it's the best thing you can do because you're not going to learn if you BS and whatnot. So,
well, and even worse is they might think that you know what you're talking about, but when they later find out that you didn't, they're not going to be real happy and probably never going to use you again. Yeah. So,
and I think that's the biggest one too, is if that you're taking on liability with stating something, right? So if there's something in the covenants they have questions about, or there's, certain things that now that you're telling them and they're expecting it down the road, never can ever turn out right if you're just throwing something out.
I just dropped my pen. I am 100%
the number one thing that Brad does on the podcast
in agreement with you is that, see, I've got my pen, which is now my pointer.
Oh my God.
So the one of the deals is with condos, right? Or single family unattached or single family attached. Like a lot of people
Everybody's market might be different,
but assume that, everything is included, right? I mean, like this morning, you said to me, the roof's not included. And I said,
it was a single family attached.
And they're attached. So you would just assume that they're attached. So the roof's got to be included. But I knew that that's not always the case, that my mom and dad owned a place where they had to replace the roof and it was not covered under the HOA. And they and the neighbor had to get together and agree that they had to replace the roof.
So you guys both, it's assuming and not, I would agree.
Yeah,
so
assuming.
For me, I definitely am on board with that one. But I think for me, I feel like too, it's they say in here, misunderstanding the hustle. And I would agree with that. Like for me, I feel like a lot of new agents that I've seen over the years in our previous brokerage and now in our own office, they just, I think in the beginning, they just don't fully grasp what it takes to be successful in this business. I think that's the number one thing. And I think that can be your downfall if you continue to approach the business that way. If you get it right, like, it's one thing to you start and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be some flexible gig and I can just make my hours. And you realize pretty quickly oh crap, I can do that, but I'm not going to really be successful.
I think what you just said is the reason why a lot of agents completely fail, is that they're sold on it's very flexible and you can create your own hours. And what that really means,
well, you can,
is that you are, when you start, especially, you're at the mercy of what everybody else's schedule is. Now, the longer that you're in the business, they'll wait around for you. But boy, when you get going, you had better jump on every appointment, every opportunity. And I know that is this work-life balance thing. Throw that out the window when you very first get in the real estate business for probably the first 10 years if you really want to do well.
Yeah, and I mean, we've had the conversations too within our office about, you know, part-time realtors, and you know, we get the perspective that, you know, when you're first coming into the business, you know, there's the honest truth is there's not a lot of the money coming in, but the only way that you're going to make it through that time period is if you go full in. So whether that's going on every showing opportunity that you can get, doing open houses, shadowing open houses, being in the office and just hearing conversations that people are having, you have to, and it goes back to a previous conversation we had too about, you know, fully immersing yourself in the market to understand it, right? But you also have to fully immerse yourself within the industry too to be successful.
Yeah. And I think that's hard because, like you just said, and there's an agent within Real that, I mean, when she interviews somebody and they want to do it part-time, it's a no for her. And then if they want to do it full-time, that she flat out asks them, okay, well, how are you going to fund yourself for the next 3 to 6 months before you get a paycheck? And so that's something I think that people don't think all the way through. And, you know, I get it's risky, and I'm not telling anyone to just go quit their job and dive into real estate full time if you're not fully in. But on the same token, we talked about this just this week with some things that have come up in conversations, is that, I mean, if you're not willing to gamble on yourself and bet on yourself, then you're probably not going to put in the effort that you just said, PT, is needed to be successful at it, right? Like, I mean, a true story, and we did a podcast on this, I don't remember which episode. I mean, when I decided to join you in real estate, you were 100% commission based. You were doing a decent business. I left my salaried job, and granted, we didn't have kids, but we didn't know I wouldn't get, you know, we'd recently married and whatnot. We didn't know that, but we were willing to take that risk on ourselves. And I'm like, if we're doing this, we're all in, we're doing it. Right.
Well, and I think that has to go back to just mentally preparing yourself. Right. You know, we would be doing you a disservice here if we just, you know, didn't give our opinions on this. We've are going through it. We've been through it. And we're seeing the success in people that commit to this. And so, you know, as much as some people might not have the same opinion on this as us, it is something that I feel that, you know, I would be doing a disservice if someone came to me and said, hey, I'm thinking about getting into real estate and becoming a realtor. I would just feel guilty if I didn't be completely honest with somebody. And yes, I know every situation is different. But if there's any slight interest, I'm going to be real with you. And if you can't take it, then maybe it's not the right industry for you.
Take the heat, can't get out of the kitchen.
Exactly.
So why do you think that so many new agents underestimate how difficult their first year is going to be?
Social media.
Oh, 100%. And every realtor, social media, that's very true with real life too. I mean, everybody always likes to post everything that's great in their life. They're not going to post the bad. Well, some people do, but most, you know, it's all the glamour shots of their life. Right. And that's not the way that life is. We all know that we all have our ups and downs. And I think, especially in the real estate business, that you want to exude that you're doing well. Right. And if you don't do that, then you just assume nobody's going to do business with you, which, I mean, that's probably true, is you don't want to put a negative message out on social media. But a lot of these people that are in these videos that are doing these things, that are quite frankly really good at it, they may not have a great real estate business, but they have to show that they're doing well, or they're afraid that they're not going to get the business.
Well, it's like that old saying in sales. It's really the sales saying. It's the whole fake it until you make it till you make it, right? Fake it till you make it. Which I do think there's something to be said for that, but I don't think fake it till you make it. It's not lie until you make it, right? Like it's not create a false, business or whatever. And it makes, I just think all that's icky when people post that stuff and it's not true. But you can spin that as a new agent, in my opinion, is just sharing how enthusiastic and excited you are about
Absolutely.
the business that you're beginning. You don't have to act like you have all the answers or all the sales or you've been doing. I mean, just be enthusiastic, because as a consumer, I will guarantee you, and PT, I will let you speak to this because I know that you have this experience in your business with some of your recent clients, and is that consumers respect, especially younger people that are starting their business, that they can see are passionate, hardworking, honest, and reliable, and they are going to reward you for that.
Right. And I couldn't agree more with that. I think that there's so many better different avenues of just, expressing yourself than just fake it till you make it. Most of the people, yes, it is good to see success within someone's business. Obviously that's one of probably the key drivers to driving somebody to someone's business. But also there's different avenues. One that's really helped me out tremendously, and I've mentioned this before, but I absolutely love where I live. I love the community. And if I show that, I immerse myself within the community, I know everything about the community, that's just almost as well as showing that, hey, I sold 17 houses this month. But also just showing you want to show your skills. What can I provide to you? What solutions can I provide to you? Either whether that's I'm sharing something about a restaurant that maybe you'd be interested in trying on Saturday night with your family. A lot of that stuff plays a lot deeper than just showing, hey, I sold 7 million this month.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. And when I was even younger than you, PT, I always got the question, because I was, 22, 23, and I looked like I was 18. And a lot of people would say, how long have you been in the business for? And I would be completely honest with them, and they would say, oh, so you haven't sold a lot of homes? And I would be completely honest. I would say, no, I haven't. But one thing that I can tell you is I really have a lot of time for you.
Yep, that's right.
And so it depends on what stage you're at in your career, right? So that's what you use when you're younger, is that I've got more time. And then when you get more experience, you say that I've got the experience. So it all depends on what level that you're on. Being new is not a bad thing.
No.
And a lot of people like to be that client that is the one that kind of gets you to the next level. That, hey, I know that you haven't sold a house. Like literally one of our biggest listings that I ever got back when
2008, 2007.
No, this is way
Not your first $1 million one.
Then. No, I mean, this was not even that expensive of a house, but I really thought it was back then.
It probably was.
Well, I'll be quite transparent. It was a $99,000 house. And when I got into the business, that was kind of a big deal for me. I mean, if you were over 100, I mean, that was like, oh, I wish I could.
Well, you're dating yourself, Brad. Dinosaur.
But it was my first listing that I ever had. And it was one of my sister's friends. And they knew that I had never sold a house before. And they were like, we want to get you going. Right. And I remember these people like it was yesterday, and they moved out to Taylor Ridge. They live behind Whitey's Ice Cream in Rock Island.
This is a Bowie trait. They do remember all these things.
I just remember that I was honest with these people. I was like, this is my very first listing, and I'm going to get help when I need it. And I remember when it sold. And it didn't take real long. I mean, back then it took probably 3 weeks, which was pretty quick back then. And they were so happy, and they told everybody about me. And it's like, it's okay to tell people that you're not sure, but you'll get answers.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because that's one of the conversations I had with one of the brand new agents in our office in our that I was training yesterday. Is, she's sending a letter out to her sphere, which is, we're going to get into some of that stuff. And she wanted me to proof it. And it was great. I mean, it was very great. She did it was, enthusiastic. She touched every point. She was very personable in it. But the thing is I said to her, the only thing, and this is so cute too, by the way that she said this, she'll laugh when she hears this, but I said, you really also need to touch base on the fact, don't be afraid to be vulnerable with the fact that you are new in this business, because people are going to read that letter and they're knowing you're new, right? And they're going to be like, oh, that's great that she's doing that, but I'm not going to hire her because she's brand new and she doesn't know anything. So don't be afraid to lean into the fact that you've partnered with other top producers, other top agents to mentor and train from, and they're here to help me, guide me in this process. And she's so funny. She goes, oh, I didn't know I could like actually mention like people's names, other ones. Like, I'm like, you're so cute. Yes, you can. But that goes back to making sure you're in the right setup too, because, you know, that's a great thing. We'll not get down into this, but Reels model really allows you to mentor and train an agent and give your time to them, where it's helping you build your business and their business at the same time, rather than, you know, but whatever, we won't get into all that.
Yeah. And, you know, there's that line, always be learning.
Yeah,
and that's true. You always want to be a student of what you're doing, whether you've been doing it for a year, whether you've been doing it for 25 years, whether you've been doing it for 30 years, that the point when you quit learning or you just don't start to learn, you're not going to be successful.
But I think sometimes, going back to what we talked about in the very first question though, is like, there's the stigma, right? Like that if you're new and you can't do it on your own, then you must not be good. And I guess what I'm saying is I think that, again, you have to find the right partnership and the right situation, the right team, the right office, the right group of agents that you're working with. But as a new agent, you 100%, if you find the right fit, can have that person that's there to help you with your clients, and they're still going to remain your clients. And then, you know, you're just going to learn and get better from them. So what do you, what is the one thing, PT, that you wish, and everybody, what is the one thing that you wish someone would have told you, like as a brand new agent before you started?
Well, yeah, I think I've mentioned this before, but how to do taxes. But that was my biggest thing, is that I kind of missed the jump on
got that tax bill and
but I've mentioned this one too, but it's always been my biggest learning point. And it goes back to the letter, and it goes back to, you know, not shying away from that you're a newer agent. But it all lies on, and I learned this from Brad, is that you introduce yourself to every single person that you are in a room with. And then eventually it will come out and they'll ask you what you do, and then you tell them proudly what you do. Right. So the importance of the willingness to go up, introduce myself, showing them, hey, oh, wow, they actually asked who I was. And so that leaves a lasting effect. With everything being on our phones nowadays, the personal connection, we talk about relationship building all the time. But it took me a couple of years to get comfortable with that. But that was the one thing that I think was the biggest learning point and learning curve for me.
Brad?
Yeah, I think over time, what I learned is you have to get into rooms where you're uncomfortable. And what I mean by that is that it really pushes you to be a better version of yourself. And for any new agent, I would join organizations. I would get involved with things that you might even think that, you know what, this is a little bit out of my comfort zone, but long term, that's really going to help you a lot. We just spoke with a gentleman yesterday that he was just out of college, and he met this community leader, and he met my dad and a couple of other guys, and he started playing racquetball with them at Davenport Athletic Club back in the day,
which isn't even around anymore.
And he said that it was like the who's who of the Quad Cities. Like, I mean, you would like, this is kind of the funniest thing. Those of you that remember the 80s and the 90s, they used to have these athletic facilities that had like racquetball, and they had like tennis.
People that are new agents right now don't remember this.
And more importantly, they also had a bar. Right. So this guy said that he would sit behind this guy that he knew that he wanted to hang around these guys, but he was so intimidated. And he said every time he would open up his mouth, he was afraid he would say the wrong thing. So he would literally sit behind this guy that he knew. So they knew he was there, but they wouldn't call on him to talk or ask him any questions. But then you look at this guy, and now, I mean, everybody knows who he is. He is a leader of the entire Quad Cities. I mean, he's like one of these people that everybody knows the name. Right. But to really think that he was that vulnerable at that young of an age, but he took a chance, and he said, these old guys, they're willing to hang out with me. I mean, this is great, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about, you know, in anything you do, there's going to be moments of, you know, you being uncomfortable. And you just have to take that head on. Be in a room with, you know, you always want to be in a room with someone that's smarter than you. So immerse yourself, take the opportunities that you get, because there's not many that are given out. And just absolutely just try to get as uncomfortable as possible, because that's the only way you're going to get comfortable.
Yeah. I think for me, what I wish someone had told me, which it's so hard, because when you're starting the business, especially if you do dive in full time and this is your business, right? You're anxious to get a paycheck and to start making money, because it's how you're supporting yourself now, right? But I do think that I really, if I could go back in time, or if someone could have told me, it would have been just to really slow down a little bit more in the beginning. Even more so to just really truly understand the business and take the opportunities to learn from people that are around you that really know what they're doing, because you can't, once you start to get busy, you can't undo the busy. And it's a beautiful thing once that happens, but it's like you almost are like, gosh, I wish I would have just, you know, learned a little bit more about this, or I wish I understood this contract better, or I wish I knew how to do this, you know, technology thing better, right? That's the one thing for me, is just making that time to really learn more in the beginning, instead of just immediately being like, I have to sell something, you know, so, which is hard. I get it. It's a balance, but you can't go backwards.
Exactly. You can't hit the reverse button. I think something too that, you know, like, there's one thing that if there's a mistake, and it's not as a newer agent, but as you start to break the mold and start to become a business owner, I think the one mistake that we see most often is the client experience, right? Brad, you touched a little bit on, you know, you make that client feel like they're the only client. You know, you have all the time in the world to give to that person. Well, once you start to get busy and you have 10 clients you have to do, I think the art is almost lost across the board, and mistakes that are made of these agents. You know, you're not hearing from people, you're not getting the full service that maybe you would have got a couple of years ago from this person. So making sure, you know, whether that's learning how to create systems in the beginning to, you know, be able to hold on to, you know, a larger scale of clients or business. It's quite interesting. I think the first 3 years, and it goes back to mindset and preparation, has to be, you know, how am I going to prepare myself to be a business owner and a successful business owner?
Yeah. And you want to make that person, that client, and it's extremely difficult when you get really busy. Don't be cheap. Hire an assistant, hire help. That you never want to lower your level of service. And once you get really, really busy, you get spread pretty thin, and you're just not giving that level of service. And I'll let you guys talk real quick, but I got a text message the other night. And I'll let you guys talk while I find it.
What I want to say to that, which we're kind of a little off topic, but not really, excuse me, because I do think it's important, because especially for newer, if you are an agent, and I guess we're assuming a new agent is young. You're not always young, right? Okay. But in the world that we live in today, everything is so, like, you always have a phone, you have an Apple Watch, you have a computer, there's social media, there's phone calls, there's text messages, all these ways that clients can stay in touch with you. And so I do think that it's really hard to not just allow yourself to always be available to every client. And this is something that was instilled with me from Brad. I mean, I kind of got it a little bit from my previous career in sales and marketing in the hospitality industry, but you are very strict about this. And it goes back to what you said, PT, about that person being the most important person. I don't think there's a lot of agents that still do this, but it's something that we do and still do. And we set the expectation with our clients that when we're in appointments, so if we're at showings with clients, if we're at a listing appointment with a client, whatever it is, we do not respond to emails, texts, whatever from other agents. I mean, it's so embarrassing for me sometimes when my phone and my watch don't sync. And for some reason, my watch goes off, even though, you know, my phone's on Do Not Disturb. But I think that's just so important. I mean, when you get out of the meeting, the texts, the emails are still going to be there. And if you set the expectations with your clients that this is how I operate, when I'm with you, I'm with you. And when I'm somebody else, I'm with somebody else, I will get back to you as soon as I can. I just think that's, again, I mean, go back to a surgeon. They're not in surgery responding to questions from the previous patient. No. There's a follow-up call. Hold on. We'll just wait. I'll be back to stitch you up. Okay.
And that just kind of goes to it from the other night. And this goes back to being a new agent and you want to have good habits. I don't answer my cell phone when I'm with other clients, and I try not to even look at it. And especially if I'm sitting down and like talking to them, I don't look at it. So I had heard my phone vibrating a whole bunch and I couldn't figure it out. And then I looked down, I was like, what in the world? And then
Something
I was like,
must be on fire.
yeah. So then it was Andrea called me 4 times to let me know something about an offer that all right. So let me back up. So we got an offer on a client's house. The agent that wrote the offers sent over the offer on her client's house.
Because Brad had went out, they're a little bit older clients, and Brad had went out to meet with them in person to present the offer. We hadn't received the offer that the subject to closing was in the offer, and you were in the meeting. And I kept trying to call him, thinking if I called 3 times, it would come up, but apparently it didn't. So then I text the homeowner, or I called the homeowner himself.
Called the homeowner.
And then he answered, gave Brad the phone. But anyway, go ahead.
So it just goes really back to that these clients knew I was completely with them only. And when I left there, the husband sent me a message, Brad, FYI, we are so pleased with you as our realtor. And then about 10 minutes later, he has said his wife's name, tells me she really feels you are looking out for us as well. And he says, I agree. Now on to blank and blank's new home. So it's instances like that remind me that people appreciate your complete presence. So that means that when you're in a meeting or you are doing a listing presentation, you're writing an offer, don't even have your cell phone on the table.
Right. Yeah.
That even if it's on the table, that gives the impression that at any time you might look at that thing and that's more important than the client. So that's just a lesson that I've learned over the years. And even before, we were cell phone heavy, it's just always being completely present with your clients that are right in front of you.
Yeah. Okay. So how do new agents waste time, and how can they fix that? Like, what's things that they do that waste time?
Well, I think it's not wasting time. I think that a big struggle is when you don't have anything on your calendar, you don't have an appointment, and you have dead time, finding things to do, right? I think as we continue on through this technology age, it becomes a lot easier to get distracted or to get off course on what you have your tasks ahead. Yes, we all have stuff that needs to get done. But it gets a little distorted when you're kind of sitting there and I think the greatest example of this is working at home, right? I mean, then you just immerse yourself in so many more distractions. But I think just having the plain fact of understanding, what needs to be done. So what works for you to organize yourself, whether that's putting time slots in calendars or having a task list of what you need to do. Like for me, I'm a huge person of writing stuff down. So every morning when I look at my follow-up boss, my CRM, I know what needs to be done. I've got task lists all in there and all that stuff, but I have to write it down, and I like physically checking it off. So when I hit a dead time or a dead period within my day, I can look at it and say, oh, I haven't got back to this email. I haven't done this CMA. That will kind of keep you on track.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that thought process. That's why everybody's totally different.
That's right.
So I do what you're really saying as well. Like I like to write everything down, but the problem is I don't use checklists, and I like have it in my head, which is about 90% good.
No, you write it down, honey. You just leave it on the counter at home.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm saying is then I don't really check it off. But if I write it down, to your point, it's ingrained more than it is if I just hear it. So like if I'm even going to a class or I'm going to a client consultation, if I listen to them and write it down, I'm probably going to retain it. No doubt. It's one of those where everybody's different, and some people have a photographic memory. Good for you people. Some just remember everything that's said to them. You're a genius, but it's very, very hard. Everybody's got their own system. I do wish that I used the checklist system a little more, though.
Yeah, I guess for me, I would say that I think that it's trying to be someone else. I think that that's a big time waster of new agents. I think that new agents, a lot of times you watch them, they want to go on to social media. They want to, watch read the book, all these things,
Yeah.
right? Like the next big person that, I think that they start watching them, they follow them, they research that stuff. And so then they start changing things that they're doing because they're like, oh, well, this person's successful, so I'll start doing this, or this is what this person does, so I'm
Like
going to do this.
They really want to be Ryan is
Right.
Sarahan when they're really PT Bowie. I mean, use items from everybody and
Right, but I'm just saying they're chasing that instead of, again, doing things like, learning the business as far as the basics of it, or making calls, like especially now that we have like AI tools for role playing, for calling, so that you can learn some of the objections and questions and information that you need for buyers and sellers. That's, for me, I would say probably the thing is just trying to chase the big picture too quickly instead of the things that they could do to slowly get up the mountain, right? They're looking at the top of the mountain instead of each step.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to just, mental preparation as well. The one thing that needs to be understood, and that what I tell everybody if they ask me once again about becoming a realtor, is, no one's path is the same. You might come into the business at the same time with somebody, and they might just have a couple more opportunities than you. And it's really easy to compare yourself to other people, especially at a younger age or at a younger starting point. And it wears on people. It's just a natural thing to see someone have a little bit more success from you. The biggest thing at the end of the day is just to keep your head down, keep running the plays. And if you're doing the right things, you're fully immersing yourself, then your path's going to continue
there's
on.
Also, like in anything in life, I mean, there's early bloomers too, that they just instantly get in the business, and then they get busy, and then they're great, and then they lose what they had when they started. And then there's other people that build it. They stack days every day. And they get better and better and better and better. And that's a much better long-term strategy than just jumping in and just having instant success. I mean, we all wish we could do that, but that's just not a realistic expectation.
Yep. Okay. So what role does mentorship or lack of it play in new agent success or burnout?
Well, mentorship is a huge thing because, you're starting at ground zero with your knowledge, your skill, when you first come into an industry. So, it's a huge part. And we've talked about this in the past as well, about, finding that piece that, one, you kind of feel that you two are aligned in the same way that you want to run your business, but also you want that kind of piece to be able to get into the groups that you might not have opportunities with, or sit in and see showings or go to open houses. It all kind of is focused around the same thing. It plays a huge role. It gives you opportunities that you might never get.
Absolutely.
Brad?
Yeah. I mean, I think PT pretty much just hit it right there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would agree with what PT said. You don't have, so like when you got in the business, who was your mentor? Do you feel like out of the gate that you had the right setup for a mentor? I mean, you can't contra dad. I mean, clearly he was your mentor, but he wasn't helping you in day-to-day business.
I really think it's important. Like I just said, you just hit it on the button. But the biggest thing is, there's going to be that one person that's going to believe in you, that's going to tell you that you can do it. And I had a couple. I was lucky. I had Scott Case and Jerry Rossi when I was very young, that they told me that I could do things that I didn't know that I could do. And I will say, to give Andrea credit too, that once we got into business together, like they got me going. And then Andrea's like, why aren't we doing more? Right. So during your career, you're always going to have these mentors that are going to tell you that you can do more than what you think you can do. And if you don't have that person, seek that one out. And I just think that's true in life too, right? Yeah. I mean, there's always that one person that just believes in you regardless, right?
Well, the second part of that question,
outside of your parents, of course.
The second part of that question is how should you choose who, as a new agent, how do you choose who you should learn from, right? And I think we touched on that. If you didn't, I don't know, it should have run by now when this one runs, but we did a podcast on if and when you should hire a coach. So we touched on a little bit of that then, but I'm a firm believer in, looking at what that person has across the board, right? Not just okay, Have they hit the sales goals that I want to hit? Have they, done this and this and this? Like, are you passionate about certain things? How does your life work balance? When I mean that, like, are you passionate about your community? Do you want to give certain things back? Like, you want to have someone that aligns with where you're going. And every single person, like you touched on before, PT, nobody's path is the same. So I definitely think it makes sense to have somebody that aligns with you and your core like beliefs and understanding, and they've done what you've done. But on the flip side of that, I think too that you also have to have someone that can challenge you, right? It's like both for a mentor, coach, all of the above. Like, it's like our coach says to us, I'm not going to tell you look pretty because you already know you look pretty, right? Like, that's what you have to have. You have to have a mentor that is willing to give you the tough love. And also, I think too, the thing I would say about that is, do they really want to be doing that? Like, is it like, I don't know that I could have the guts to ask someone this in the beginning of my time, but is this what you want to do? Yeah. Do you want to be a coach to me, a mentor to me? Do you want to train me? Do you have the time to do this? Because if it's not where they're at, we would be the first to say, obviously with UPT, we wanted that, right? But prior to you, so I would say 6 years ago, prior to PT, we thought we wanted to kind of mentor and help agents, but we were not at a point in our business where our like, I would say the switch had flipped into where that was something we were passionate about. Would that not be agreeable?
Yeah, no, so
it wouldn't have been we could have mentored and we did help other agents, but not to the level that we are on the course and the pace and what we want to do now.
Yeah, and I think a part of that too is the move when we moved over to Real a couple of years ago. The environment that they set up encourages that too, where we're all helping each other. We're all owners of the company too, which is really kind of cool. And I'm not just really talking about our office, but Real as a company. So the collaboration is very, very good. And that's just the culture that they have created as well, is, hey, let's help each other out so we make everybody better.
Well, and I actually have a real life experience of this, is where I had a conversation with someone at Real that I thought that my business or what I wanted it to be aligned with this particular person. And after some conversation, it just didn't seem that the person was ready. They were kind of in transition of taking over a quite large team in the Salt Lake City area. And so it just didn't seem like the time was right. And, you just move on, you continue to look, and here we are now. I struck gold with my brother Dusty down in Texas, that, it was another thing that we just sorted through the process. Most of the people that are set up ready to mentor or coach have this process of a screening process that they're going to screen you too, because they're investing time into you as well. Yep. Yeah. So, they're not going to sit here and, take an hour a week. And if you're not going to do anything, it doesn't make sense. The relationship doesn't make sense. So, I think social media is a great way to, we kind of said it's a bad way to kind of compare yourself to things, but it's also a great search engine tool to actually have kind of an idea of what people's different businesses look like, right? They're showcasing what it is, and you can easily go on there, take a look, and then communicate with them. So that's also a big thing too, is just start to kind of research, look out for what people are doing.
Yeah. And I think it's an evolving thing too. So back when I was getting into the business, you had to get a coach that was local, basically, or the other alternative is you like had a telephone call with somebody, which just isn't quite the same. So I really think COVID kind of changed that too, where you now had Zoom calls, which Zoom was around, but not nearly as popular. Zoom, Teams, and the rest of those. But it was great that now, like when we do our coaching calls, like we can see the coach, like we can see the reactions. And I don't necessarily buy into that the coach has to have sold more than you did, that needs to be more successful. I think you need to find a person that has a proven track record that's coached other people that have gotten them to the next level. Yeah. And we were lucky that we found Eric Hatch. And quite frankly, I mean, he had a great real estate career too, and he still does as a leader of a team.
He had a great real estate career, and he also made lots of mistakes that he learned from.
And he's
That's
honest
what makes it.
about it.
But you know, as a new agent, if you're listening to this, that's I would say that when we kind of went off on a tangent on coaches, and as a new agent, you're probably not hiring a coach, right? Because they're not, the good ones aren't cheap, but you are probably finding someone to
mentor,
right? Yeah. Mentor, trainer. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So just kind of keep that in mind. A coach will come probably down the road. It'll be something that the person you're learning the basics of the business and just how to start your business. Then it's time for when you start figuring out, like, you know, you've climbed halfway up the mountain and maybe there's a, you know, what do they call it? Split back or something. You could go a different, you know, that's when you're like, okay, now, you know, I'm not.
Well,
so, yeah.
And we didn't have a coach, or I didn't have a coach for almost 25 years. And I'm not going to say that's great. But what I will say is we went to a lot of conventions, a lot of classes. So that's what so we were constantly learning. So that is one other alternative.
So let's kind of shift a little bit into lead generation. Cause obviously as new agents, you know, you've kind of understood you're learning the business. Now it's like, okay, I gotta. So what do new agents do wrong about lead generation?
They sit around and expect the business to come to them.
It doesn't?
No, you need to, it still goes back to this license law, or not license law change. The real estate law change has changed everything, where there were a lot of agents getting into the business that were getting Zillow leads, realtor.com leads, and they were making a pretty good living just off of doing that. With the law change, that has changed a lot of things, that you have to sign a contract now. And if the buyer has never met you before, they're probably not going to sign a contract with you. So we're going back to the basics here, is that the more contacts that you can make, the higher probability that you're going to do well in the real estate business. What I mean by that is get involved in stuff and meet people.
Get in front of people, have conversations.
Yes.
Well, and there's always a fine line too, right? I mean, we always talk about, you know, the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about lead generation is phone calls, right? You got to make the phone calls, blah, blah, blah. But there's a lot of layers to it. But there's an elegance to it too. You know, you kind of have to be strategic and where people are going to see your faces, where people are going to meet you, where you're going to grow relationships. You know, sometimes you might want to, you know, you find a little bit of a hole where you think that you could grow yourself into in a particular area or, you know, company, something like that. So it's kind of a strategic planning when it comes to lead generation. It's not just, you know, go make 500 phone calls and you know, get told 499 times, yeah, you get one lead, but you know, it's part of it. But the biggest thing for me is like that I've learned too is, you know, you hear about phone calls and you have to make them. But our generation doesn't like to talk on text, which is fun. You know, I think there's an understanding now too that, you know, lead generation comes in many different forms. But the biggest thing for me now is I can't do text messages. If someone asks me a question, I just pick up the phone and I give them a call because I can't probably write more than 50 words in a text before I'm like, this is just pointless. So my biggest thing now is like,
and then it starts telling you, keep your text short.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just like, I will call anybody and everybody I love calling now. So it's my favorite thing in the world. And
I think I'll agree with both of you because I do think the one thing that people get wrong about lead generation is thinking that it's one source. It's like
from a lot of areas.
Yeah, I'm a big one of the whole funnel, right? It's like all the different ways that leads come into your funnel, right? And that's in community involvement, that's one-on-one connections, that's having coffee with a friend, that's having a glass of wine with, you know, someone you haven't talked to for a couple of weeks, that's, you know, going to some social gathering and just meeting new people. And it's also, you know, hopefully you're in an environment where you are getting some of those, what you would call cold leads, right? That you can put in there and nurture. So for me, I think that it's just focusing, too many agents focus on one thing. And the other thing I would say about that is as they start to have some leads convert, there's a new agent in our office right now that's going through this. He's like, well, all my leads have, you know, bought something and closed. Okay. Because what happens is too, is you get very bogged down in the one or two deals you have going on because you're so excited about it, which is great.
Which I call hugging the deals.
Yeah. But so then you forget about the fact that you still need to put other things in your funnel because those are going to come through your funnel and they're going to, you know, plant their little seed and grow and you now have a closing. But there's nothing else coming.
Yeah.
So,
I actually think the most important thing is when you probably have either, your best month or you have things under contract, that is actually the most important time to be doing lead generation.
Yep.
I mean, you're gonna get caught on the wrong side of the end when those things close, and you're like,
oh yeah,
now I got to make phone calls and wait 30 days, right?
Yep.
And so you're missing out on a check potentially.
Well, I think I mean, I know I've said this before, and I think you can both whatever you're doing this 30 days is what's gonna be your next 30 days. And same thing, the 60 days is your next 60 days. So you have to think about whatever, we think about this every year when, obviously now we have residual business and clients that still happen and stuff. But like when we used to, we got married August 25th, right? So every year, August 25th for the last 17 years, we've tried our best to take time off during that time. And that time has slowly increased, over the years. But the funny thing is that, 3, 4, or 5 years in when we were doing it, we'd come back from that and we'd always be like, why are we so slow in September? Like, why don't we have very many closings at the beginning? Well, it's because we got focused on going out of town. Then we were out of town. Then we came back from being out of town and we're trying. So it's like, again, whatever you're doing those days, you have to know, and that it's fine if you're okay with it. You just have to be prepared for that and what you're doing in other months of the year. So, yeah. So why do new agents struggle to set boundaries or structures in their week? And you kind of talked a little bit about that, PT. I mean, for me, I feel like it's just they don't have systems in place.
I just think it's a total lack of training.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's just having, because you're going to get overwhelmed. I mean, that's just the biggest thing at the end of the day. But if you can prepare yourself to handle that, then it will be just fine. But having the systems, I think the biggest thing too for a lot of people are we have iPhones, so all the contacts go on your iPhone. But it becomes very discombobulated when you start to grow or you want to keep track of your database. Spreadsheets sometimes aren't the best thing in the world. So, starting to find investment, with a CRM or potential something to keep track of, okay, these are my first clients, which sometimes might be your best clients, you never know. But these are the people that, I'm going to be here at year 1 and I'm going to move down to year 5, year 6. That year 1 person is going to be coming back at some point. So just making sure that you continue to follow up and keep on continuing with these fear follow up.
Well, and I think in the beginning, it goes back to what you said too, structuring your week. Like, so you do a couple things and maybe they don't work out the way you want. So then it's like, you might get a little like burnt out or stressed out. And so then you don't follow through on the things you need to do the rest of the week. So I just think it's having a system, having a process, following through on it, knowing what you're doing certain days. And you've gotten really good at that in the way you're in, because, here's the thing, Brad and I laugh about this. I mean, you have all these tools now that just use them, like
keep you organized.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they're overcomplicated. It's like, all right, let's just simplify this a little bit because, some people's brains work different than everybody's. And so it's sometimes it gets a little out of control.
Okay. So let's talk money. How do new agents screw up financially? PT's already answered this a couple times.
That's a classic example there.
Yeah, taxes there, you just, and they're not too complicated, but it's, you want to protect yourself at the end of the day. You don't want a large check, especially if you're newer into the industry and don't have a lot of cash flow in. You don't want to owe a big bill at the end of the year. So just being prepared for that.
Yeah, I think that is definitely one of the biggest deals with realtors. Also, spending everything that you make, and I think that goes across the board, not just in real estate, but just in general life, is you always want to save some money. That, especially in real estate, like you just mentioned, Andrea, you're going to have times when you don't have a lot of closing. So you want to make sure that you have coverage for those months. So even though you just made a nice commission check, that might have to last you for a little while. And you always want to plan for the worst and hope for the best. But save a little money.
So 2 things. So like when you were talking about taxes, that's the other cool thing about a structure like Real is the way that they're set up with having QuickBooks integrated, which they just rolled out, but it happened. So that's good because as a realtor, when you're starting out, you can set your systems up that way. And you can also set up now where different money goes into a different checking account or bank account. So that's great. So there are tools within the brokerage level that we're blessed enough to have within the Real environment. The other thing I think though too, for new agents, as far as financially, is they want to start listing homes too soon. And what I mean by that is they can't wait to see us. There's their name on a sign in the yard because they have a sign in the yard, which is awesome. And I mean, I remember, like one of the first ones, you obviously had a business before, but like where it was like, my person that I brought in from my previous, life. And I was excited about that. But here's the thing about listings, new agents,
you have to market them.
They cost money.
Yep.
They cost money. If you do it right, an average listing, let's just use it. An average listing, if you do it right, is probably this is short end. A month before it even comes on the market, you're spending time with that seller. You have money going out the door for professional photos. If you're doing it right, you have money going out the door for staging. You marketing dollars once you list the property for different things that you're doing. So I think that's for me, because listings are great, but you're going to get listings by building a huge buyer pool.
Yep.
They, like you just said, PT, you hit the nail on the head. Those people in year one that buy a house from you, they're going to need to sell sometime. Right. That's your listing. So once you really understand, and as an agent too, new agent, you really shouldn't be listing homes. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but you don't know the market well enough to really advise your clients.
It's pretty good advice to just co-list. So then you learn how to do it.
Yeah. But and the other thing is as a new agent, you understand, until that house sells, you're not making any of that money you just spent back. So the buyer is different in regards to what your costs are in the immediate. So that's what I think a mistake is. Okay. What mistakes? This is a great one. I already know my answer to this. What mistakes do new agents make with their clients that hurt their reputation in the beginning?
I think we covered this already. Acting like they know what they're talking about when maybe they don't have the answer to the question.
Yeah, I think there's a level of professionalism too that is learned throughout your career. So whether it's there's a lot of speculation on what different things of how you should run your own business, right? But I mean, just being present and being professional, I think goes a long way too. And then there's a million things that fall under that umbrella with working hard and integrity. But it's just the finding your core of professionalism and providing it to your client.
Mine, I think, goes hand in hand with the last question. And it is when the deal is just not the right deal for your client, but because you're so new in the business, you really want the deal to go through. I think that you just have to remember that it's okay. You're going to have another deal. Yeah. You need to make sure that you're protecting your client at all costs. That's the thing. That's the best decision.
One of the most impressive things that I've learned over the years is when you're working with buyers and you tell them to not buy the house, and these are all the reasons, that they're like, oh, this guy is looking out in my best interest.
And that's how you're going to grow the quickest.
And that's not hard work. That's just being honest.
That's how you build trust.
That's how you build trust.
PT here has got a hard stop pretty quickly here because he's got appointments here. But so a couple final questions here. So number one, how do early on in the business, you're a new agent, you start to get some sales under your belt and you're, doing good. How do egos get in the way early on? How do they affect you in your business?
Well, I mean, everyone's going to have a confidence booster whenever something goes right in life. So, it's understand, and it goes back to what we just spoke about. Continuing to run the plays, lead generation, marketing yourself in the right manner. So it's when you have that dead time or that space where you could be doing something to continue on, then you should be.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think regardless of what you do, the top people have an ego, right? I mean, what I mean by that is that they're very confident, right? But then there is that line that some people cross and it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, right? So you want to make sure that you don't cross that line. And a lot of the times when these people cross that line, that's when they go into answering questions that they don't know the true answers to, that they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. So that's an ego problem. And just learning that being humble and letting people know that you don't have the answer, but you'll get it to them is huge. And that builds trust. So I think ego, to answer your question, gets in the way when agents are afraid to admit that they might not have the answer.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that happens the most when you have like 2 or 3 years of success. And then all of a sudden
Yep.
you're like, you run it, you realize, oh crap, something's new every day still.
Yep.
Right. And you run into something that you realize that you don't know the answer to, but you don't want to admit it. But I also think too is when you have 2 or 3 years of success or 3, whatever, you start feeling like you do know everything and you're the best agent in the world. And, you know, I'll use, I mean, Josh Altman, if nobody knows his story, go and listen when he lost it all. I mean, any of the top people that they all have those stories, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a story. You can go back to the podcast when, you know, we had some tough years and, you know, it happens and you're just going to learn and grow from it as long as you stay humble. So that's
absolutely
that. All right. So what should new agents stop doing immediately and what should they start doing today?
I would say to stop buying every marketing idea that you see. Yeah. And research the ones that really work. And what I mean by that is what really works is there's nothing wrong with like looking at what other agents are really doing or asking other agents that have been successful over the years. Just ask them, hey, I've been looking at maybe investing in this. What do you really think about it? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's a lot of people really think that's a weakness, but it's a strength when you ask other people that have been down that road. The old Chinese proverb, there's no better people to talk to that are walking back from the top that you want to go to, right? I mean, those are the ones that use them and that use their knowledge. I mean, and what was the other question?
Which they start doing immediately.
What should they start doing? Yeah, just if you have an idea and you invest in something, just do it. Like, see it out. Like, it may not work right away. Like a great example is when I got into the business, open houses, right? I mean, I wasn't very successful at them at first. Like, I had to learn how to talk to people in a business setting, and I learned that it was in a business setting. It was just being more personal, right? Mm-hmm. Just being myself. So just keep on working at these items. Don't give up on things right away. Just keep on working.
Well, I'll kind of connect on that for what you should stop doing is stop hopping around brokerages. I think, to avoid that, to avoid that, I think the biggest thing is, do the interview process thoroughly. Don't go to the first brokerage that you interview with.
It offers you the lowest split.
Yeah, exactly. So just do your research. So stop just hopping around. So that's one preventative. And one thing, just consistency. Just put your head down every single day. And do something that will make you take a step forward.
Agree.
So my 2 things are to stop doing immediately, stop comparing yourself to everybody else.
Yeah.
Just like you just said, PT, put your head down, look at where you want to go and figure out how to get there. Stop comparing yourself to everybody else. It's so hard, especially with social media. The second thing that I would say is start doing immediately is I would literally start doing open houses every single weekend that you can do them.
That's like kind of come back in vogue.
Literally, it is free advertising. You get to meet people, shake their hands, introduce yourself. They put a face with a name. It costs you $0 other than the gas to get there.
And if you drive a Tesla like PT,
that's right.
It actually costs you whatever it costs to charge your car, the electricity bill, right?
All right. One final thought to give all of our new agents a little that are out there listening to this a boost. One final thought.
It's just for me. Keep your head down. Keep pushing forward. And just prepare yourself that it's not what you hear about, unfortunately. So prepare yourself for that. If you put the work in and commit to it, you're most likely going to have more success.
You are better than you think you are.
Right.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's literally the best career in the world, but that doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly, hard work.
You got to put in the work, and you're going to reap the rewards. All right, peace.
Bingo.